This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome to a very special edition of ABC-7 Extra. I'm your host, Kate Beery, and let me tell you, the countdown is officially over. Just look at the pent-up demand for legal recreational marijuana in New Mexico. There are so many people here ready to buy products from our green leaf. This is their flower. And tonight on ABC-7 Extra, we explore the concerns of producers who fear there will be a shortage in the state and the challenges for law enforcement officers in two states with two completely different laws. Did you know that cannabis would become legal this year?
I knew that cannabis was becoming legal this year just as much as the rest of us knew the pandemic was coming. So the answer is no. I had no idea. To implement cannabis was not on my radar at all.
Talk about just how large of a feat it's been. I mean, with the creation of the Cannabis Control Division, hiring people, just figuring out the law itself.
It was a little overwhelming. So it's been a learning curve, like a huge learning curve, but it's kind of fun. And it's new, it's a new industry, but there are some industry standards that we've been able to glean from other states. So we got somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million to implement this, and most states operate on anywhere from $15 million to $25 million and more.
From the government to the greenhouse, Ultra Health is by far the largest supplier of medical marijuana in the state. Last year, according to the company, it made $60 million in revenue. Money does grow on trees. Cannabis has made Ultra Health millions of dollars in New Mexico.
I've been personally passionate about cannabis, since I was 18, like you mentioned, growing in an apartment, and at that point it was very frowned upon, it was still very much illegal. I just always had a connection with the plant and the medicine it provided. The passion just kind of went from there, and 19 years later, here I am.
So much has happened since 18-year-old Mando started growing his own plants in his apartment. Talk about what happened over the next 19 years when it comes to cannabis and laws.
I started downstairs in the basement at the back door washing dishes, and I've been commercially cultivating now for a little over 6 years. Never would have seen New Mexico becoming legalized, that's for sure. It has absolutely come a very long way from people being prosecuted and put away in jail for long periods of time for unfortunate, events. 100% devoted to what I do, and I love with a passion what I do.
Talk about the growing conditions in New Mexico, from the sunshine to the climate.
Oh man, the sun here in New Mexico shines on average 350 days a year. Being familiar with outdoor cultivation, that's how I got started. The way I always look at it and the way I always jokingly say is the big light in the sky is free. So the conditions here in New Mexico, supersede a lot of other climates.
You did not go to school for this. There was no program in school that you could learn in terms of growing cannabis. How did you learn? Just trial and error?
Yeah, definitely trial and error and experimenting and taking a lot of notes. It's very imperative, so that way you can refer back to those notes. And in my opinion, greenhouse mixed lighting is one of the best ways to cultivate cannabis, because you're utilizing both the sun and artificial lighting when needed.
Ultra Health had an initial goal of propagating 150 clones a week from the mother plant. Now the company has a goal of 900 clones a week. How hard is it to maintain a level of quality over 900 clones a week?
It's extremely difficult, and it takes a lot of consistency.
Why are you proud of this garlic strain?
The strain in general does very well commercially, but these roots are phenomenal. It takes only about 11 days for this type of root development, and the propagation team does a phenomenal job at what they do, and I take a lot of pride in what it is they do for us.
What appears to be frost on this cannabis leaf is actually a cluster of trichomes, and when you squeeze it and rub your fingers together, you can smell the garlic in the terpenes. When you're looking to cultivate the product, grow the product, do you just purchase the breeds from individual breeders?
Yeah, there's seed banks out there that offer different seeds from different breeders.
So someone comes out with this great garlic strain, and then someone could jump in and say, oh, I combined it with cayenne pepper. So now we've got that double strain.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is possible for sure. My heart is really into these plants for sure, because you are recreating Mother Nature in a way. And in order for these plants to thrive, you know, they require certain temperature levels, certain amount of lighting requirements, amount of light you give them, to the humidity levels, amount of airflow, water intake, nutrient intake. A lot of other elements besides those main elements come into play when it comes into the vigor and the rapid rate of growth that you would hope and expect to see from your plants. Environment, in my opinion, is at least 40% of a successful grow, because you could have all of the strong genetics, all of the best nutrients, and your environment can be not optimum, and your plants won't thrive as well as you want them to.
So what is this?
This is our wet wall, our method of keeping the greenhouse cool, and what it is basically like a giant swamp cooler in a way.
I feel like everyone talks about the leaf itself, but the flower is what gives you the product you're looking for.
The flower is what gives us what we're looking for, yes.
Each plant has its own tracking number, so the state of New Mexico can ensure that Ultra Health is not growing more than the company is allowed to. Across state lines, this plant is illegal to grow, smoke, or sell.
Every plant is tagged with a identification number through the BioTrack system. Therefore, they are able to access and see how many plants we have.
You can actually work with your competitors who are growing the same product. You can buy it from them.
We actually want to work with local growers. You know, we hope to be able to, you know, utilize any kind of material available.
But your owner does live in Arizona. That's another concern that I heard from local growers, is they argue that, you know, most of the revenue will not come to New Mexico. What would you have to say in response to that?
In reality, Ultra Health is a local grower, considering we do grow locally here in New Mexico. We actually started out in Santa Fe, which is local, and you know, we do represent the local community of New Mexico. The revenue generated from the entire program will benefit locals in the state of New Mexico.
When you need the latest news, turn to the ABC-7 Alert Center.
A woman is pulled from a burning house. ABC-7 solo signs and photojournalist Jerry Nahara with the first TV crew to arrive.
With new details breaking minute by minute.
Firefighters were back there battling that blaze. Another group of firefighters were out here knocking that door down to try to rescue that woman.
The ABC-7 Alert Center has real-time updates to keep you informed and your family safe. Only on ABC-7, where news comes first.
I had a job handing out mints while dressed as an elf.
How tall are you?
Currently 6 foot.
Caution, this show contains false information.
I think it's a lie.
I think it's true.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I touched a penguin.
What do you mean you touched a penguin?
I don't know what else to say, my friend.
Would I lie to you?
Premieres Saturday, April 9th on the El Paso Las Cruces CW.
When a big change in the weather is coming to the borderlands, a first alert is the Storm Track Weather Team signal to be prepared.
You could see gusts up to 50 miles per hour.
We issue ABC-7 first alerts for times like this, when we have blowing dust and sand, reduced visibilities, and strong winds. We do it days in advance to keep your family in the know and keep them safe.
First alerts, one more way the ABC-7 Storm Track Weather Team helps you plan your day and keep your family safe.
The NFL Draft is now officially open.
This is an iconic night on the American sports calendar.
Peyton Manning.
Joe Burrow.
Trevor Lawrence.
There's so much emotion. We're going to see that. It's about reflecting on the journey.
Tonight, they finally fulfill that dream.
It all comes down to this.
With the first pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select
the state has capped the number of marijuana plants that producers can grow. Some worry about a shortage in the coming days.
You know, unfortunately, there will be a shortage, and that shortage will come from the cap on the number of plants that producers are able to grow.
The state is keeping you restricted to a certain number of plants. Why Why is that hard for your business?
The state is capping the potential of the program due to the fact that they are regulating the number of plants that we are able to grow.
Growers that we meet, that we speak with, do worry about a shortage of supply.
We're not feeling like there's going to be a shortage. We have been advised that there's a possibility that some sellers, some retail establishments, could run out on the first couple days that it becomes legal. We don't believe everybody's going to run out, and we don't believe that our numbers show that it'll be long term. So we think that there could be some run, maybe there'll be some lines, maybe there'll be some, overbuying.
How frustrating is that for you after you found this perfect formula, the perfect growing conditions, and you want to just grow throughout the state as much as you want? Pecan farmers, chili farmers, they don't have this cap that you have.
It's very frustrating because, again, you're putting a limit on the potential and the possible revenue that the state can benefit from by having that cap on the plant count. And, if we were growing green chili, for example, yeah, we wouldn't have a cap. And, I could have acres and acres and acres of green chili without having any sort of tracking system. But because it's cannabis, for some reason there's that cap, and it makes it very difficult to be able to meet the demand that the state is requiring, basically.
Just talk about why the need for the plant cap, and if you imagine it will increase.
So I'm not sure that I can answer your question about why the need for a plant count. That was a legislative decision. I can tell you some of the things that I heard. There was some concern that the market would be flooded. There's some other states that had some market flooding issues, and they controlled that through plant count and through license limitations. The legislature here didn't opt to do a license limitation, but they did opt to do a plant count. So I can just tell you anecdotally, those were kind of the stories that I heard as I was listening to legislators ask questions and to the legislators who carried the bill answering those questions. In states like Washington and Oregon, there was literally warehouses full of cannabis that was being unsold. What happens when you have an overflow is the market declines, the cost of cannabis drops, people lose out, their businesses suffer. So you've got someone who maybe has invested thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in a business, and they've gone bust. They've not been able to survive. And then you have potentially warehouses with cannabis sitting around, which then has the ability for it to more likely go into the illicit market, or you have it being transferred to other states, which is also illegal. It wouldn't be fair if the market dropped out and the price of cannabis dropped so low that people couldn't stay in business.
I wonder how you will protect the tens of thousands of medical patients who rely on this to treat their many conditions.
Yep. No, that's a really good question, and it's a valid concern that we have tried to accommodate for and make sure that we have given enough authority to grow. So we're going to try to work with and get messages out and get the word out to medical patients. Here's the start date. We're not suggesting that you overbuy, but we are suggesting that you make sure you go in before that date. We'll probably get some advice from some medical professionals as to how to message that so that the word gets out. And then, we'll continue to add new producers.
For the year 2022, dispensaries in New Mexico will be required to sell at least 25% of products to medical patients, and that's to protect the thousands of New Mexicans who rely on this crop for their medicine.
So until the last day of December in 2022, there will be a 25% minimum sale requirement for medical cannabis. After that, it drops down to 5%, and that's hoping that the market has kind of leveled itself by then. The department has the authority to raise it up to 10% if there is a shortage, and we also have authority to limit new licensees to only produce and sell medical cannabis. So we have some triggers, some levers that we can move.
What is the state of New Mexico doing to ensure that minorities and people of color can enter this market for a drug, a plant that they've faced prison time for in the past.
It is really unfortunate that there's been this really horrendous war on drugs. And one of our focuses is absolutely to ensure not just that there's some social justice, but that there's some social and economic equity. And so the department, once we appointed the CRAC committee, the Canna-Biz Regulatory Advisory Committee, we asked them and tasked them with that being the first thing that they actually tackle and accomplish. What does that mean? What does that social equity mean? In the interim, we've also taken some steps. One of those steps is that we're offering something we call Invest in New Mexico. And they're monthly online seminars where we bring in folks from the Small Business Development Center. We bring in, this last month, we brought in Tax and Rev. We brought in the Financial Institutions Division Director to talk about access to capital. So we're providing these courses and this information, contact information for angel investors in the event that people are interested in investors. So we're providing that, and it'll focus attention predominantly, actually exclusively in the beginning, on micro businesses and micro businesses that are identified as being in those categories for that social justice.
Some people are all about the half slice of cheese. Some people obsess over the tartar sauce. But everyone can agree that a filet-o-fish couldn't exist without the smooth, perfectly steamed buns that hold it. Well, everyone we want to know anyway.
Call your Filet-O-Fish loving friends so you can enjoy all the things that make delicious more delicious. Go ahead, order 2 Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, now for just $6. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Our team is proud to receive the Lone Star Regional Emmy Award for Best Morning Newscast. It's hard to believe that it's already been 1 year.
We appreciate the recognition this annual award brings, but our commitment to you is on display each and every day.
Good Morning El Paso is the Borderlands home for complete coverage of breaking news. Plus, your accurate, reliable storm track weather forecast and traffic track. ABC-7's award-winning Good Morning El Paso, every weekday morning from 4:30 to 7. When a big change in the weather is coming to the borderland, a first alert is the Storm Track Weather Team signal to be prepared.
And then you'll notice by 7 o'clock in the morning, look at this, rain. This is snow here.
We issue ABC-7 first alerts days in advance to prepare you for days like today, where there's snow, rain, and dangerous driving conditions.
First alerts, one more way the ABC-7 Storm Track Weather Team helps you plan your day and keep your family safe.
The Borderland is strongest when we support each other. That's what Borderland Local Links is all about.
Connect with your favorite restaurants, check out activities your family can enjoy, preview upcoming sports and entertainment events. It's all right at your fingertips. Just go to kvia.com and click on local links right there at the top of the page, or scan the QR code on the screen with your phone. Borderland Local Links, supporting local business, connecting you to things that make life better.
A new law in one state presents challenges to another state. El Paso County Sheriff's Commander Ryan Urrutia says he is worried about Texans bringing this plant back to El Paso, but he says there are no plans for increased patrols. April 1st is when sales will begin for recreational cannabis. As a law enforcement officer in a border community, what is your biggest concern?
So our biggest concern is always consumers going to New Mexico to purchase drugs that are legal and then returning to Texas, because it's still against the law in Texas to possess marijuana of any form. Stay in the state that it's legal. If you intend to consume it, don't return to Texas with it, because if you are caught with it, you will be arrested and charged with the possession.
What would you tell El Pasoans who are considering making that trip?
I would tell them to be cautious. You know, if that is your choice, of course, in New Mexico, it's legalized and you can use it for recreational purposes. In Texas, we are still enforcing the law. We don't make a decision on which laws we'd like to enforce. We enforce them all.
What about driving high back from New Mexico?
So driving while under the influence of marijuana is a violation of law covered under the DWI statutes, and there are drug recognition experts that can determine your level of intoxication under that substance.
Do you have plans for April in the Sheriff's Office with stepping up patrols in these border communities?
So we have already informed our officers that these drugs are going to be available to our neighboring state and anybody that goes into that state. We have already seen the influx of marijuana entering into Texas from Colorado. So this is nothing new to us. It's just closer now. We will not do those checkpoints by state law. We only do driver's license and insurance checkpoints. DWI checkpoints in Texas are not authorized, so we don't perform those. We will do random driver's license and insurance checkpoints, and those are set up to look at, make sure people are operating their vehicles on the roadway with a driver's license and insurance for that vehicle.
We have so many really unique border communities. We have Chaparral, we have Santa Teresa, Sunland Park. I mean, talk about the challenges of these areas being so close to Texas.
They're sister cities for a reason. They are so close in proximity with the communities of Chaparral, Las Cruces, Sunland Park. All of these are right next to us. And you've got to be very aware of where you are at all times, because if you do cross into Texas, like I said, there's consequences still in this state, and we, us and local law enforcement enforce those laws. Some of these roadways where individuals are entering to the state, they're busy. It's not reasonable for us to place a checkpoint on I-10. That creates a danger to that community for anybody driving out there, and that's not what we want to do with the checkpoint either. So, we've got to look at how we enforce is going to stay similar, because we have seen drugs come from Colorado, so this is nothing new to this community. It's just now, it's like I said, it's closer.
Walk us through some of the possible consequences someone might see on the road.
Immediate consequences of arrest, and that ranges all the way up. If you are at a level of intoxication where you can't control the vehicle, where you're speeding or driving too slow, and you ultimately hurt or could even kill somebody, you're subject to manslaughter charges, aggravated assault charges, and that's not anything you want to be subject to because you chose to either drink and drive or take a recreational drug.
Do you feel that with every state that's legalized, your job's gotten a little more difficult?
It has. It's made it difficult because the marijuana that is being produced is a higher grade marijuana, so it's more desirable. People, are seeking that out, and so it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult because once, once a product is desirable, people want to buy it. And, if you choose to engage in the use of marijuana, people buy what they like, and that's a problem.
What is the biggest substance that poses a threat to El Paso County?
Fentanyl. You got to remember, if you're purchasing any type of narcotic, whether it's marijuana, whether it's any type of pill-based narcotic, fentanyl can be laced onto those products. So, I always encourage everybody, do not do illegal drugs because you don't know what you're getting. If somebody buys it there and then gives it to you as the third person, you've got to be aware of those things. Fentanyl is very dangerous, and the last thing you want to do is leave your loved ones wondering why you did these types of drugs that ended up in this situation. We are seeing, those THC cartridges, which are legal in other states, coming into El Paso, and we've got our high school students getting in possession of them.
Possession of a joint might be a misdemeanor, but possession of THC oil in a vape pen would be a felony.
That's correct. You hate to see a young man or woman, 17, 18, 19 years old, to be faced with a felony when they're just beginning their life. That's a difficult thing to come out of, and you don't want to see them struggle with a felony offense on their record.
Just the complicated nature of living in a region with two states that have very different laws, very different political viewpoints. Just speak to the difficulty of that.
So it's always difficult because, it's the introduction of that drug that has been legalized in our neighboring state is going to enter El Paso. We can't say it's not, because it will be. And, the difficulty of the public understanding, we're not a legal state yet. That's not, I don't know if we're going to go that way. That's not, anything that the sheriff's office has control over. That's done at the state level. But as long as it's illegal, we do enforce that law. We will take action. And, You know, ultimately too is the community understanding the seriousness of using recreational drugs. It's just like drinking. You know, you can't have too much. You know, and understanding those limits is important.
The doors to these dispensaries remain open as supply is plentiful in New Mexico. We will let you know if there is a shortage in the days, weeks, or months to come. Thank you for watching this very special edition of ABC 7 Extra. Have a good night.